So, all right, let's move on.
Whoa, you good?
Pooped in his big boy pants.
Our rally cry against kickers. Blair Walsh. Blair Walsh probably won some weeks by himself because he was a beast.
Better than most running backs.
I'm saying if you get
Nerf kickers.
if you get bonus points for 50-yard field goals, then Blair Walsh scored you a boatload, a scientific boatload points.
You done with the kicker talk?
It need to be brought up, man.
All right.
You got to give it where it's due. If you're going to talk about defense, you got to talk about the kickers.
Oh, it makes sense to transition from kickers into
Poop.
All right, quarterbacks. We've talked about it already.
Cam Newton.
Cam Newton, Big Ben, and
Well,
Tom Brady had their worst games of the season. And we saw this last year from Andrew Luck. He had his worst games of the season in the fantasy playoffs. You can't not start them, right?
Yeah, and that's where sometimes I'm not sure that it's better necessarily to stream than to have the stud, but that is one of the nice things about taking the streaming strategy is you don't ever get locked in on that. This guy's got either a bad matchup or there's this guy with a juicy matchup and I just can't play him over the guy I invested heavily in at the draft. That's a freedom.
A good point.
It's
such a good
freedom in streaming where you go, I'm just going to play the guy that I think has the best chance this week, and you start Kirk Cousins, and you're happy because you did it.
You make a great point. You get locked into those other guys. Man, I loved having Tom Brady as my quarterback for half the year this year. I loved it. It was great to lock and load him. But if I was streaming a guy and I didn't have Brady on my roster, I might have ended up in better shape during my championship year.
Yeah, Brady didn't win anybody a championship. He might have helped them get there, but you had to overcome Brady on your roster this week to win that championship.
Yeah, so I don't, it's not probably maybe it's worth talking about these guys for next week a little bit.
Sure.
Big Ben has alternated these monstrous games where you're saying to yourself, boy, if this team got in the playoffs, they're going to win a Super Bowl. And then he's got the Browns next week.
That's a bonus.
So,
for Ben.
and they have to win, right? Because they need to win in order to get into the playoffs. Right now they're on the outside, and if the Jets take care of their business.
Yeah, if the Jets beat the Bills next week, then the Jets
it's
are
over.
in.
Yeah, it's over.
And I wish I could remember who was.
Isn't that ironic, though? Because Rex Ryan now has to go up against his old team.
I didn't
and
realize.
can keep them from the playoffs with a win.
Wow. That's going to be a fun.
That's good TV.
I had heard people talking about they wish that game was the flex game instead of the NFC North. But I wish I could remember who was tweeting this out because I would give them the credit. But they were talking about Ben Roethlisberger on the road is not the same fantasy quarterback that he is at home. It has been quite some time before he has since he has thrown more than 2 touchdowns on the road. I'm trying to recall how long it's been. I know for sure this year he didn't do it, but it's an interesting stat when you look at Big Ben on the road, not putting up those monster. You get used to these monster games from Roethlisberger, like 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, not when he's on the road. So that may be a trend that we need to take into account next year when you think about Roethlisberger as a high draft pick.
Yeah, and it is, again, it's a divisional matchup. And we've seen, Cleveland, they didn't beat Kansas City, but they stayed competitive in that game. Mind you, Kansas City shelled up and ran like 9 plays in the second half or something ridiculous. But.
So looking at that, I mean, when you actually pull up his season game log, it is astounding. Because at Baltimore, 0 touchdowns. Home against Denver, 3 touchdowns. On the road against Cincinnati, 0. Home against Indy, 4. On the road, Seattle, 1. At home, 3. I mean, it goes pretty much all year. But now, this next week, he's on the road, but he's not against Denver and Cincinnati and Seattle. He's against Cleveland. What are you doing with Big Ben?
I'd be rolling him out there.
Yeah, so I'm looking back to last year, and he did towards the end of the year at the Bengals, he had 3 touchdowns. So it's more a stat of this year. But I would still have confidence starting him against the Browns because the Browns defense has just been so bad.
They're like Ravens. They're like the Ravens D.
When we bring up the Ben Roethlisberger story,
I see what you did.
We have made a horrible mistake by not. Well, hold on. Let me see here.
What?
Oh, we're getting to
I
it.
never
Okay.
make horrible mistakes.
All right, he's in there. Never mind. Okay, we'll move on. I thought we forgot somebody, but he's in there. Big Ben, bad game. Aaron Rodgers next week. A division on the line and an offensive line that is a sieve right now, and wide receivers. Let me just say this. I know it's not been said before. Devontae Adams stinks.
Yeah.
He stinks. I mean,
Oh, Adams.
I'm sorry to have to say it in that way and just reverberate what Jason has been saying since before everyone knew it. But, man, the guy doesn't make plays. He doesn't make plays. And there's no separation for those wide receivers. It's kind of a weird thing because they're sitting here about to win the division, go to the playoffs, and I don't even know what the team is. I really don't. I don't know who they are. All right, so who else do we need to talk about here? Brady next week, still relevant to him.
And
Yeah.
who are they playing?
The Patriots take on the Dolphins next week in Miami.
Yeah, that's a
Division game.
Yeah, and certainly you have to take into account, but Tom Brady, and we could have an Edelman sighting. We
Yep.
could have an Amendola sighting.
Things
we're not
should be
sure.
better for Tom Brady next week.
Yeah, that's
This was a very important game for the Jets. The Jets took care of business in this one, and they have a very, very good defense. This is not the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, if you're a Brady owner playing in Week 17, you're very happy with that coin toss going the wrong way in overtime. and then
Well, there
losing.
was also some conspiracy theorists on the Twitter, as they tend to be there.
What, that the ref just said you're kicking?
No, that Bill Belichick wants the Steelers not in the playoffs.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
I mean,
that
I
is
can't.
that's delightful.
Here's the thing: you can't. You're like, no way. But it's Bill Belichick. This guy is very, very smart.
Wow. Well,
They're around. I'm not buying into it, but
all right. That's funny, though. It's a funny storyline. All right, running backs that did not perform for you this week. Well, that would be everybody from Seattle, including Christine Michael, Bryce Brown, and nothing from them. 6 for 6 for Michael, 7 for 9 for Brown. James Starks didn't do a thing against Arizona.
That's not true. He fumbled.
I'm sorry. Antonio Andrews
Also fumbled.
and Shane Vereen didn't do anything. Nothing to speak of really there. I mean, do we see long-term value in any of these guys? I know I don't.
No.
yeah. But if you're, yeah. So like, let's say you're in the week 17, you're scrambling for the running backs, and you're looking at the Seattle, the backfield. You can't trust them. They're with the offensive line woes re-showing once again. They have to go on the road against Arizona. I'm avoiding
A
it.
game more relevant to Arizona probably than Seattle.
I am avoiding it.
You know, a guy that I think also, this type of week is where the pooped in the big boys' pants aren't just the guys that put up nothing, but the guys that didn't do it in championship week. You know, a Doug Martin who looked like he was going to have such a great, juicy matchup, got 49 yards, and he got a touchdown, but fumbled twice, didn't perform the way that you needed him to.
Matt Forte, 50 yards, no touchdown.
Yep,
Right.
exactly. I mean, those are guys where we got a lot of listeners that I'm sure are angry at their running backs who underperformed and stunk it up in the time that they needed it the most.
Chris Ivory didn't do anything.
Yeah,
Not
Chris,
that we didn't say that on the show, but, another bad game for Ivory. Not championship performances from those guys.
Yeah,
That's the way to say it. So wide receiver, to me, the biggest name by far, bar none, biggest disappointment of the week,
Good friend of the show.
Martavis Bryant. Absolutely terrible. You look on paper, Baltimore against Martavis Bryant. I'll be the first to admit it. I had Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant at the very top of my wide receiver list this week. Those were guys that I thought you could count on without question. Big Ben, I think, a bunch of listeners mentioned the same thing on Twitter. This is a team that dominated Denver in the passing game.
Yeah,
So now you're going to face a team in Baltimore. Your season's on the line, and Martavis Bryant gets one catch
well,
after 10 catches against Denver's. I didn't know how to explain this one. I don't.
There was zero signs of a bad game coming for Bryant. In fact, all signs would point to him having a monster game.
Double digits in 5 of 6.
And then you're going up against the Ravens secondary. The NFL, where crazy things happen,
Every week.
and Ryan Mallett outperforms Big Ben. Crazy things.
Crazy things.
Yeah.
Ted Ginn Jr. is another guy who he was my start of the week because he got 14 targets last week, has been on fire with Cam, going up against Atlanta, who they just blew out a couple of weeks ago. Shutout, right? It was like 38-0.
Yep.
And then Carolina. I think, who pooped in their big boy pants? The Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, Olsen owners weren't happy. Newton owners weren't happy. Ginn owners, Cap owners.
Yeah.
Um,
Carolina Panthers fans.
their defense owner.
I had their defense. I had Olsen and I had Cam. I lived I hate Carolina this week.
The trifecta. Yeah, that's true. And then, sit of the week, Amari Cooper. Terrible performance. Running on one leg, maybe.
Yeah, he clearly looked hobbled.
And Randall Cobb.
And hopefully Emmanuel Sanders. Just going to give a little pre-pooped.
So, Randall Cobb, let's talk Randall Cobb longer term.
Happy to do so.
Is there concern, or is this
No, okay. That's more of a joke. Because
is this a matter of Jordy Nelson
Yes.
comes back and hopefully he returns to form? Nelson's a bit of an older receiver coming off of an ACL surgery, which we know guys can come back from that now. But if Nelson can come back and into form, is everything A-okay up in Green Bay?
it's going to go a long way to helping that situation.
That was a triple rhyme. I just want you to know.
Is it going to be okay in Green Bay? It's going to go a long way?
Yes.
Well done.
You are correct.
Dr. Seuss level
my mind
of rhymes.
is exploding.
Well,
right now I wouldn't start Randall Cobb on a boat. I wouldn't start him
In a he looks like he's playing in a moat.
3 for 15. I mean, I've said it before. He doesn't look the same to me. And you mix that with nobody over the top that gives you any danger, no running game that's been consistent all year long. When I saw Randall Cobb pile up numbers is when you see Aaron Rodgers pile up numbers in terms of first down. That was the biggest number that jumped out to me. I don't remember the exact number, but last year their efficiency on third down conversion was league best, and this year they're not doing it. Aaron Rodgers, the first 4 games of the season was something like 73% accuracy-wise. Since then, it's in the 50s.
Oof.
This is a different offense. They can change play callers all they want, but if he's on his back or if his receivers can't get any separation, you can't throw it to Randall Cobb. I'd be covering Randall Cobb.
Yeah,
That's what I'd be doing. I'd be covering him and let Devontae Adams and Aberdarius and all those guys drop the ball.
Yeah, the hope is that Jordy Nelson makes it better for Randall Cobb. But when we're talking about keeper leagues and you've got to choose, do I keep this guy versus others, you don't keep Randall Cobb because what you're doing when you hold him is you're saying there's a chance that something could fall his way and then he could be good again.
Right.
I mean, that's like you've got like this triangle
Let me
of
ask you
hope
this, though.
For a decent player.
Similar situation. Cobb's obviously younger, but not super young. If you had to keep Larry Fitzgerald or Randall Cobb,
Ooh.
That's a great question.
who would you keep? Because both have a Pro Bowl quarterback. It's supposed to be a prolific offense.
Yeah, but one of them's younger and one's coming into their golden years.
Well, in addition,
Both
yeah.
slot receivers.
But in addition to that, you have 2 young guys for the Cardinals in John Brown and Michael Floyd who have shared, their injuries this year, and presuming health for next year, that puts Larry into where he's been lately versus where he was at the beginning of the year. For that reason, I think
and
I
lately,
would keep, for that reason,
not
I
been
think
good.
I would keep Cobb, but I would much, hopefully,
That's an interesting question.
I'd go Mike Evans. Is my answer.
Do you guys remember how long Hines Ward played, by chance?
like 25 years.
Well,
That guy
because
played.
I want to see, because Bruce Arians was Hines
Right.
Ward's offensive coordinator. Hines Ward was a very valuable slot receiver for many, many years in the NFL. Could block the way Larry can block now. Larry's 32. I'm just curious to see, what his career arc
Hines
looks like.
played a long time.
But yes, Larry's last half of the year has been just paled in comparison to his first half of the year because of the health of Michael Floyd and John Brown and that offense and David Johnson now. So All right, where are we? Let's
Tight
see.
ends.
Tight ends. Fantasy face-off.
Yes, you were absolutely correct with Richard Rodgers, 1 catch for 2 yards. Something I did not account for was 9 sacks from Aaron Rodgers. That was what I did not see
Third
coming.
straight week with 1 catch.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I judged the fantasy face-off well. Gave it to Andy, and Richard Rodgers stunk.
Stunk by association.
Yes.
Yeah, they say that when the entire team is that bad, then Richard Rodgers is not going to be good.
Ben Watson let people down because it was a shootout, and the guy had 1 catch. So they're going to replay the game, give him another shot at performing for your – no, I'm getting word that they're not going to do that. All right, Jason Witten closes the year with 1 catch.
Good. We've said for
As
a long
in closes
time.
the year, or
No, we're just saying, we've said for a long time that Witten is the type of player that is owned and started in way too many leagues. And hopefully, if you were listening to this show, he wasn't playing for you. I think one of the guys that hurt people is actually Antonio Gates, who I think was a great start this last week against Oakland, and he didn't get it done at all. 2 catches for 11 yards. There are plenty of championship teams that said, ooh, Gates, juicy matchup. He had 3 weeks of 6 catches in a row. Why would he not be used again against one of the worst teams against tight end? Roll out Gates, but it went Ladarius Green's way that game. Wrong tight end, same game, so no Gates love.